Welcome to the Soar podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs with limitless dreams and unconventional stories. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, founder and business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. My goal is to bring you stories of what's possible so you can never tell yourself that your dreams are impossible. All right, so we have Tarryn Reeves on with us today. Tarryn, tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do.
Sure, I'd love to. Thank you for having me on the podcast. My name is Tarryn Reeves, and I am the CEO and founder of Four Eagles Publishing and the publishing house Concierge. And together with my team of experts, we work with high-level entrepreneurs to create best-selling books that act as lead magnets that grow their business.
Okay, so real quick, I'm going to take a little segue. For anybody listening who needs to work on their elevator pitch, damn, that was amazing. That was a perfect example of telling us exactly what you do and who you do it for and who you work with. So book publishing, that sounds like, I'm one of those people who I've always felt like I was a writer ever since I was a little kid. I've always been, hoarding pens and stationery and notebooks, and I always carry them with me. And I've always had it in my head that I'm a writer. And writing a book is one of those things that I feel like, oh, someday. It's just so daunting. How do you work with people who feel like they have something to say, something to share with the world, but they are just intimidated as fuck about the whole process?
Yeah, it can be a very daunting process, especially when you're telling a personal story, because you're like, who's going to read my story? What are they going to think about me? And I think, especially for women, it can be this real fear of being seen, of being visible, of stepping outside the traditional box of what traditionally women are seen as in society. I suppose even in modern society, we have come such a long way, but there's still that underlying kind of thing that, we should be in this particular role. And I love to make things easy. I love systems. I'm a massive nerd. And I'm like, okay, to me, someday is not ever going to arrive. There is only today, right? So it's great to plan into the future and have goals. But if you have been sitting on the idea of, I really want to be a writer, but it's all too intimidating, it's all too hard, then you need to talk to somebody like me who can make it super simple. I'm really good at seeing a big picture and going, okay, let's break it down into all these puzzle pieces, if you like, and make it really super simple, easy and transparent for you to implement. So a book, for example, if you're looking at a solo book, you just have to spend an hour, half an hour. It literally just takes that much. And you go, okay, what's chapter 1 about? What's chapter 2 about? What's chapter 3 about? And then you go, okay, I'm going to write chapter 1, which is about this particular topic by this date, right? And that's all you think about. Because once you have these containers, they actually all equal a book once you put them all together. And a lot of business owners already have the content for a book. You can turn your course into a book. You can turn your speaking event into a book. You can turn your retreat into a book. It's really quite easy to do.
Yeah. Wow. So, you just have this way of taking something that feels very daunting and just making it feel very simple and cute. And like, it can fit on that little shelf right there. And I don't have to be afraid of that thing.
Yeah.
I wonder, exactly. In your work, do you find that you do a lot of, and I'll give you an example. I'm thinking of a woman who I just interviewed the other day. I'm writing her brand copy within the marketing agency. And there's a incredibly powerful part of her story that she's not willing to share yet because, and not to be too morbid or crude, but because her parents are still alive. And she's not willing to tell that part of her story, which is a huge part of who she is and why she does the work that she does, because she's afraid that her parents will read it and find out, and things will change. So I anticipate that that's actually a pretty common thing, especially with women who want to write a book. Do you do any sort of mindset work with people around those elements of telling the whole story?
Okay, so the mindset work, it's such a big deal, right? And it's understandable that this is such a scary prospect for a lot of people. And I actually work with a lot of women in this space. So especially we do multi-author book projects as well under my publishing company, because it is such a great stepping stone to a solo book. So if you want to write a book, you actually can become a best-selling author without having to write a whole book, right? And you come into a container where there are 19 other people, because I like to cap my books at 20 people, 19 other people all writing under the same kind of topic, all writing similar stories. And the stories that I like people to publish are those real, raw, vulnerable stories. Okay. Yeah. Why? Because you need to stand out in the crowded marketplace. And the only way you're going to do that is by being yourself, by letting people see who you are in real life. Yeah. Okay. So I think it can be really attractive to throw up these kind of deflective images on social media, these really kind of bland surface level stories. And then people are sitting there wondering why they aren't getting the leads or standing out or connecting with their ideal clients. Well, it's because they're not telling those stories. Yeah. Because everybody offers content marketing. Everybody offers, not everybody, but millions of people offer that. Millions of virtual assistants, millions of coaches. But what makes you unique is you as a person, your experiences, your beliefs, your values, what you like to do, what you don't like to do, who you like to work with, what your unique skill set is. And people can't see that and they can't know that unless you tell them your story, right? Yeah. And it's so beautiful because when they read that real, raw, and vulnerable story, it accelerates the know, like, trust factor significantly, that it takes somebody to hand over their credit card and actually buy from you. So by the time they land on your website, your socials, book a call, download your lead magnet, whatever it is, you no longer feel like a stranger to them, right? Yeah. And it can also be really easy on social media to put people up on pedestals and go, oh my God, she's so successful. She's so much better than me. She's, I could never get to that level. But the real fact of the matter is that everybody is just a normal person with a normal life, with normal challenges. They've just done their business very, very well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So when the fear of telling your story so that your parents are going to read it, or perhaps your ex-husband's going to read it, or, things like this come up, you can tell your story in a way that isn't blaming, that isn't pointing fingers, that isn't naming names as such. Your story is your story, and it's absolutely worthy, and it's absolutely valid, and your feelings are valid, and your viewpoint on that story is valid. And by not telling it, you're actually doing a disservice not only to yourself, because the writing journey is so transformative and so healing. You're doing a disservice to another human being who is perhaps in a similar situation or gone through a similar thing, and is trying to move past that. And everybody is just waiting for somebody to tell them, hey, it's okay. Yeah. You're going to get through this. I've done this. Look at me now.
Yeah.
This isn't going to break you. We have a book coming out this Friday, actually, a multi-author book. It's called Phoenix Rising, Powerful Women Who Rose from the Ashes to Claim Their Place. And there are stories in there about cancer survivors, about divorce, about sexual abuse, about suicide. Right. And, these really taboo, triggering topics, but the way that these women have been held in this container and nurtured to heal through it, tell their story, and create massive impact is just beautiful and magical to watch.
Yeah. The writing process is, I think, something that's not given enough credit for the impact that it can have on people's lives. And not a lot of people know this, but actually one of my very first business ventures, one of my very first websites from way back in the day was called Script Therapy. And I was in process to become a counselor in the prison system. I was going through all my education and all these things. And really what I had envisioned for Script Therapy was it's writing therapy. It's a self-healing process where you can, it's like, I always love to use the analogy of Harry Potter when Dumbledore takes his wand and he pulls his idea out of his head or his memory out of his head and puts it in the pensieve. It's like you're taking all these things that feel jumbled and knotted and just tumultuous inside of you, and you are stringing them out into these nice orderly lines on the page. And it's a way of processing and feeling what you need to feel and just getting it out of you so it no longer lives within you and holds power over you.
Absolutely. It takes so much energy to keep it in your head, right? And then we tend to push it down because it's so uncomfortable. And then that results in disease and, aches and pains, and, never mind the emotional issues that come up from that. As someone who's gone through PTSD, chronic anxiety, and major depression from trauma in my childhood and then suppressing who I really was and all of these sorts of things, the writing process cannot be underestimated. I mean, I went to see counselors. I went to, I did all the things. I did all the healings and the work, but it wasn't until I did the writing that final piece really slotted in and I was really able to expand. And my self-confidence just skyrocketed because I was writing this stuff and I was like, you know what, Tarryn, you're actually bloody amazing.
Yeah.
This is amazing. You are awesome, And so I always had struggled with that self-belief and now people reflect back to me like, oh, you're so inspiring. And I'm like, really? Really? So the way other people see you and the way you see yourself is not the same.
Totally different. Yeah.
And when you write, it's why people love morning pages from the Artist's Way. It's why people love to journal. And I truly believe that every single person on this earth has a story worth telling.
Yeah.
If not for you, for your kids, for their kids, leave a legacy.
Yeah.
We're still reading books from people who died years and years. We still read stuff from Socrates, Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. And you never know. There have been times when I would go to a bookstore, especially kind of like a off the beaten path bookstore. I'm thinking of this one in particular in Ojai, California, where it's actually like an outdoor bookstore. And I always wondered, how do you keep the books in such pristine condition when they're all outside? It's really weird. But I found this book there once. It was clearly self-published. It was made, I still have it. It's in my library, but it was made with this cover that had like actual leaves and flowers pressed into it. And so it was very carefully done. But it was one of those books where I'm like, there must only be 1, 5, 20 of these, maybe. And that one story had such an impact on my life. And you never know who your story is going to touch and when and why they need to hear it and how they're going to be affected by it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not about vanity publishing. I hear this term thrown around so much and it makes me so angry. I'm like, it's not vanity publishing. It's not about you. Right. It's about allowing yourself to step into that next level of expansion. But your story can have such impact and inspiration for somebody else. You can change somebody's life. Now, you may not get the credit for that. They may not ring you up and be like, oh my God, you changed my life. That's not what it's about. It's about being able to gift that other gift to somebody else. And then when you're writing for your business, as a lead magnet, people are just automatically drawn to you through your story. Your people will go, that's my woman. Yeah. She gets me. She's my lady. Yeah. And they'll be falling over themselves to get into your circle. And then it's up to you, obviously, to nurture the relationship and continue that, because that's what business is about. It's about relationships. Yeah. It's about real connections, because if you're not interested in that, then you may make a lot of money, but you're going to burn out in the process and it's going to be a pretty shitty experience.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And let's talk about that because you mentioned lead magnets. So, we're talking about the fact that you run a publishing house and you help women write these books that are within them, but you do a lot more than that as well. So, what other things do you help women with related to getting their message out and using the power of words?
Yeah. So it's all well and good to write a book, but if you don't know how to market it and you don't do anything with it, then there's not really that much point, because Amazon, for example, is one of the biggest search engines in the world. So if you just slap your book on Amazon and then hope for the best, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's all about, what do you want to achieve from your book? Now, everybody writes for different reasons. For example, I have a manuscript sitting on my desk right now that's been handwritten in pencil by a lady who lives down the road from me. She just, and this is not a business book. She's not a businesswoman, but she had a story and she wanted to tell it. I was like, I want to tell your story, so it's not just business books, but what we do is we go, what do you want to achieve? What's your goal? Do you want to be a New York Times bestseller? We can absolutely do that. This is what that marketing plan looks like. This is how long it's going to be. This is the investment. This is what we're doing. So you're looking at press releases. You're looking at organizing book launches. You're looking at getting on places like CNN, BBC, The Today Show, Oprah, all these sorts of things, and we have the contacts to plug in and get that sort of visibility. And then we go, okay, well, where are we actually going to publish your book? Do you want to get into bookstores? Do you want to just be digital? Do you want paperback and Kindle? How are we going to do this? How are we building your actual audience? Do you have a current list? If not, that's okay. How are we going to build that list? So then you're looking at, okay, well, we need to create a lead magnet and we need to create, the email sequence, and we need to create the Facebook group and all of the things that go with it, because it's not just a book in a business, it's the brand behind the book as well, and then the person behind the brand, and it all ties in together, right? And it's not just this flash in the pan experience. Then it's like, your book is a key marketing tool for years to come.
Yeah. So you really help with the whole picture. I mean, the whole lifespan of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just not into, I don't do surface level. I don't do surface level conversations. I don't do surface level relationships. I'm like, let's go deep. Let's get right in there. So for me, and it was a big hole that I saw in the marketplace. Everyone was like, oh yeah, I'll teach you how to publish your book. And then what?
Right.
Most people don't understand this process. And if they do, they don't understand the tech to implement the process, or they don't have the network to implement the process, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do I help you get to where you want to go? Because the stories that are being told can heal and change the world. They really, really can. And that's the beauty of it. And watching the authors go through this process and move into that next version of themselves, it just brings me so much joy.
Yeah.
I'm just so passionate about what I do. And the authors who write with me, I just love them.
Yeah.
They're such amazing people.
Well, and it also sounds like you really care about the experience for the writer, because I know so many people who they've thought, okay, I'm going to write a book and it's going to sell and I'm going to make all this money. Like I'm just going to sell copy after copy and I'm just going to make tons of money. But then they write the book, or maybe they start to write the book, or they have someone ghostwrite the book.
Yep.
And that's what they're fixated on, is the writing of the book. And they're not matching their expectations with their planning, their strategy, their execution. And so you really help people think through that whole lifetime journey of the book itself, because it becomes a living thing outside of you, and you help them actually bring those goals, even if they're kind of like subconscious buried goals, like, oh, I want to make $1 million from the sale of this book. You help them bring that to life based on all of your experience.
Absolutely. So I'm having a meeting with a lady after this whose big goal is to, she's writing a fiction book, and it's a kind of erotica, right? And she wants to be 50 Shades of Grey type scenario, right? That kind of thing.
Yeah, like a
Yeah.
movie
So,
deal, a box
yeah.
set, all of it.
And I was like, great, this is what the marketing looks like. And I'm not going to lie, it's a lot of money to
Yeah.
get that sort of visibility. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's about matching people's expectations. Money is not made from book sales unless you invest a hell of a lot of money initially.
Yeah.
Right. So it might be $100,000 for the marketing of the book, right? But if you make $1 million and get a movie deal and stuff out of that, then that's a smart investment, right?
Yeah.
But this is not what a lot of people think like. They're not comfortable with that level of investment, which is like, that's okay if that's where you're at right now. That's all right. But we need to then look at your big goal and go, okay, well, maybe that's not the goal right now. What can we do with your budget, with where you want to go eventually right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's about having those tough, honest conversations and saying, hey, that's not going to happen unless you've got a really big budget to sink into your marketing, right? Yeah. But what we can do is we can get you to Amazon bestseller, right? Or we can get you on these, press releases and things like that and move your brand forward.
Yeah.
Right.
And people seem to
steps.
Yes, setting expectations. Yeah, absolutely. And it seems like, especially I want to say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I started to see a lot of these companies popping up that were kind of the shortcut to a book. So there was a company at the time, I think it was called Book in a Box by Tucker Max, the guy who wrote I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell. He started Book in a Box, and I think they've since rebranded it to a different name. And then there was another one that was kind of like, I cannot for the life of me remember the name of it, but it was like a crowd-funded sort of publishing house where you would write the book, they had editors, they had cover designers, and then it was the author's job to get crowdfunding to actually print the thing and do all of the marketing and that sort of thing. And you had to get a certain number of backers in order to get a certain number of copies. And it was
That's very bizarre.
Yes, it was very strange. And I'll have to look up the name of the company, because I actually worked with an author on her PR. I worked with her and she was working with this company, but I'll put the link in the show notes for those who are listening. What's your take on these sort of like, I don't want to call them shortcuts to publishing, but they feel that way to me, and they feel like they're alternative methods, but maybe not the best methods, because people don't fully understand everything that goes into publishing and marketing a book.
Absolutely. So it comes back to like everything in life, you get what you pay for. Okay, so it might be a cheaper option. And if you're okay with that and you understand that you are going to have to do X, Y, and Z, then go for it. There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you're after. But for me, I would rather spend more money and more time in something that's going to have longevity, that's going to have the impact that I want it to have, rather than getting it done quickly. Now, that's a big thing for me to say, because I am one of the most impatient people, I think, on this planet. Like, everyone's like, oh, when do you want this done? I'm like, yesterday. And I can get really frustrated and antsy, and I have to just like go and spend some time in my garden or something, because I'm like, oh my God, I've got such big ideas and I really want it to happen. Don't you understand the impact this can have? But if you don't have a solid foundation from which to build, then your house is going to fall down.
Yeah.
Right. So if you want to publish your book on a not so solid idea or platform or strategy, then it'll work for a little while, but it's not going to have that impact that you want. Or maybe you don't want a big impact and you just want to put your book on Amazon, then that's okay.
Yeah.
I do offer a program that's, write your book in 90 days type deal. And it's a great way for me to offer my services to people who aren't ready for that bigger one-on-one investment, but still want to have that nurturing container and structure and things like that. But then the production's separate from that, right? And then the marketing is separate from that. It's like, do you want the full thing, or do you just want these little puzzle pieces? And that's only a decision only the author can make, right?
Right.
So there are so many things out there, you know, self-publishing, do this, do that. I mean, you could publish a book by Googling on YouTube and doing all the things, right? And doing it yourself. But how long is it going to take you? And how much do you value your time? Are you an expert in these things? If not, don't even bother. With lots of love, because I've been there, you know, I was like, I'll just save it. When I started out, I was bootstrapping, you know, I'll just save a bit of money here. I'll just do a bit of money here. It took me like so much longer. The lessons were great. I needed to learn those to go, you know what, Tarryn, you're really good at this. You need to just do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And which is why I've built my business on a team of experts. So I've got my cover designers, I've got my editors, I've got my formatters. Can I edit? Yes, I've got a degree in editing. That doesn't mean I should be down on the ground doing it.
Right. Exactly. You have to put your best assets in play as often as possible and let other people do the things that you're not great at.
Exactly.
And I love how you're just so passionate about what you do and about helping the women that you help and about the stories that you're publishing. How did you get here? Where did you come from before starting this publishing house?
How to fit that story into a short amount of time. Like,
I know, right?
Okay, so I grew up in Zimbabwe, which is a little teapot-shaped country in Africa. We were forced to flee there due to political conflict, so we lost everything. We moved to Australia, which we were very lucky to get into, and that was when I was 15. I went to university. I studied criminology. So I have a bachelor in criminology, which is totally not related to publishing. And then I was working in the railway, and I was doing project management and people management, systems, all of those sorts of things. And I was quite high up in the structure, I guess. I was earning six figures at the age of 23. I bought my own house. I had a new car, and I was like, yeah, I've got it made. I'm killing it at life. I'm so good. But on the inside, I was deeply unhappy. And at least I didn't know it. Like, I had no idea how unhappy I was. Anyway, as the universe does, gave me a nice little backhand, and I hit rock bottom and totally burnt out and was diagnosed with PTSD, chronic depression, and major anxiety. Quit my high-flying job overnight, kind of went into this deep, dark hole where I was really forced to look at what I wanted to do in the world, who I was, what I stood for, and remember how powerful I actually was and what I came here to do. So I then got a temp job, got made redundant a week before I found out I was pregnant, tried to get another job. Nobody would hire me because I was pregnant. And then I went, you know what? I am done. I am done with doing things the way I've been told to do them, because it's not working for me. This is not what I want, which is where my current multi-author book, which is open for applications, called Corporate Dropouts, came from. So I was using my experience to create that book. But I then decided to just start my own business. Now, I started out as a VA when my daughter was 6 weeks old, and I realized that I couldn't scale that. I was at capacity, and I was like, okay, well, how do I make this bigger? How do I serve more people? And so I scaled it up to agency. So I had a virtual assistance and web development agency. And then I had that running really nicely. And then I got a little bit bored, and I was like, okay, what else can I add on? And so I put my business coaching skills into play. So I had my agency and my business coaching running side by side. So then I booked out my calendar for that. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little, what do I do now? And the opportunity to start a publishing company came along. I had the opportunity to mentor with somebody, and I was really scared. I was like shitting my pants, no joke. I was like, Tarryn, makes no sense. You've built a six-figure business. Everything's running. Don't touch it. Do not touch it. It's running smoothly. But there was something missing for me. Yeah. Right. And so I'm quite a spiritual person. I'm a bit woo-woo, if you like. And so my spirit animal is the eagle. And I said to the universe, source, whatever you want to call it, show me an eagle if this is what I'm meant to do. And 10 minutes later, an eagle flew across the front of my car. And eagles are not common.
in
Yeah, it
Australia.
gets even better. No, they're not like a common sight, right? And I was like, oh no, that's just coincidence, because on the inside, I'm still grappling with this fear, right? So then I go and pick up, I was on my way to get food for my chickens. So I pick up the chicken food and I'm driving back, and two different eagles fly across the sky together in front of me. And I was like, come on.
And
really?
they're like, you didn't listen the first time, so here's a double whammy for you.
Yeah. And then I was still like, oh no, I'll just wait a bit longer. I'm just not going to jump right now. And then I stopped at my mum's on the way home, and I opened her front door, and on her TV, she happened to be watching National Geographic, and this big eagle was flying across the screen. And so that's why my company is called Four Eagles, because it's a nod to that. Even if you're scared, you have to find the courage to jump with both feet. And ever since I did that, this is exactly what I'm on this earth to do.
Yeah.
I am so in love with my business and the people that I work with. And if you don't mind me saying so myself, I am so bloody good at it.
Yeah. Well, and that's
I'm
the thing.
so fulfilled.
And that's what a lot of people don't talk about, and they don't realize when they get into entrepreneurship and running their own business. They think, okay, I'm good at this thing. This is my entry point, and apparently I've just got to stick with it and make it work. But like you, my business has gone through so many iterations, so many evolutions and optimizations and different services, different audiences, all of these different things, because you keep stepping up. You keep thinking, okay, this is the problem right now. How can I solve that? And then you do, but then a new problem emerges. And over time, your problems become less about our more basic needs, like money and a roof over our heads and making sure that we can put food on the table. And they climb to the point where we can then ask ourselves, yeah, I'm making money, I have all my needs met, but am I fulfilled? Am I actually enjoying what I'm doing? Is this serving my purpose in life? Is this what I'm meant to do? And you keep notching up until you get to that point where you're like, yep, this is it. Click, 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 click. Everything is in the right place. And then your business and your life and your energy and your impact on the world are just completely amplified.
Absolutely. So don't be scared to change. And us human beings, we don't like change, and that's okay. It's about recognizing the fear, sitting with it and going, okay, well, how can I support myself to move through this?
Yeah.
Don't be scared to ask for help. Don't be scared to change. And I think there's also this real misconception about, oh, when I make this amount of money, when I hit six figures, everything's going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah.
It's great, don't get me wrong, but different issues come up. It's like when you're raising your kids, right? It's like, oh my God, when they're 6 months old, you are just in this, whirlwind of what's happening to me.
Yes.
And it'll get better when they get older, right?
Yeah.
Or it'll, everything will be fine in a year's time. But then a different issue comes up, like toilet training, and then sleeping, and then learning, and then, temper tantrums, whatever it is, the problem just changes. And it's about being able to adapt to those whilst being very, very loving and kind to yourself, taking time out to understand all of that and to move through it in a way that's really supportive for you.
Yeah. If someone's listening to this and they're wondering, man, I just, I took the leap to do the entrepreneur thing, I'm doing the freelancing thing, but it's just not clicking. Something just doesn't feel right. What would you tell them?
Yeah. You have all the answers that you need inside of you, is what I would say to that. I think that you already know, you're just scared. And that's okay. That's why coaches are so, so valuable in business. I will never be without a coach because they help me get out of my own way. It's not that I need them to have answers for me. I need them to reflect back to me where I'm blind to my own fear, where I'm blind to what's my own limiting beliefs, and help me work through those stories, because your reality is just a series of stories that you are telling yourself based on your past experiences and your future expectations. And the good thing about stories is you get to pick up that pen of your own life, scratch out whatever you don't like, and write it again. Everything is a choice, right? So if you are sitting there and you're feeling unfulfilled and and something's not feeling quite right, take the time to acknowledge that and go, you know what, I can change this and the whole world is not going to fall down around me. Yeah. Right. As someone who suffers with anxiety, I still suffer with anxiety. That can be quite a triggering thing because it triggers your anxiety, right? And the heart races and the palms are sweaty and there's this feeling of impending doom. Like, if I do this, everything's going to burn to the ground. I'm going to live in a box on the street and they're going to take my kids away. Like, you can get stuck in that loop, but it's about going, what is the worst thing that could happen? Realistically, what is the worst thing that could happen? Oh, well, I'll just have to go back to a corporate job for a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what? If that's the worst thing that could happen, then that's a pretty good place to be in.
Yeah.
You know, is somebody going to die if you make this decision? Okay, well then if that's a yes, maybe don't do that and find a different solution. But, you know, often we can really build it to be this big, dramatic, catastrophic thing when the reality is that it's not. And one of my favorite things, and I do this all the time, if you break it, you can always fix it.
Yeah.
If I break my business, I can just go back and fix it. It's fine because I know how to do that because I already did it.
And honestly, the big catastrophic tragedy that really could happen is you not doing what you're meant to do in life, is you not telling your story, is you not living, feeling fulfilled and just going through the drudgery of like factory worker life.
Yep. If you want to be sitting in the nursing home or in your wheelchair or in your mobility scooter in 40, 50, 60 years time going, gee, I really wish I did that, then by all means carry on that path. Yeah. But if you don't want to sit there and be miserable when you've actually got time on your hands to really be miserable, then you need to live life to the fullest. You need to take it by the balls and you need to go for it.
And on that wonderful, swift kick in the ass note, Tarryn, where can people find you online? Where can they check you out?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, www.tarrynreeves.com, and links to all of my socials are on there. I have a private Facebook group called The Author's Lounge. Come and play with me in there. If you want to friend me on Facebook and send me a message and just have a chat, I'm down for that. I'm a real person. Come and chat to me. And I can't wait to read all of your stories. And storytelling doesn't just have to be in a book, you guys. You can do it on social media too. Your posts are opportunities for real stories.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today, Tarryn.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful.
Hey, it's Ray again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform. We're on iTunes, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, YouTube, and more. And want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at www.chironconsulting.us/podcast.